Lots to delve into. Well, why don't we start with the economic update?
The economic update. I got this, and I'm just gonna sprint through this. Okay, I can read pretty well, pretty fast. Here's a summary of what's going on here. The fall economic update by Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland projected a budget deficit of $40 billion for 2023-24, with a slight decrease from the spring budget projection. The update includes a new Canadian mortgage charter that offers relief to financially strapped homeowners and eases the mortgage stress test for borrowers switching banks to renew their mortgages. A commitment of over $25 billion in low-cost financing is made to encourage the construction of more than 71,000 new rental homes through the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. An additional $13 billion commitment is allocated to the National Housing Co-Investment Fund to build 60,000 new affordable homes and repair 240,000 others. Does anyone think that's going to happen? Let's continue here. The government acknowledges the need for more housing, stating our country needs more homes and we need more of them fast. Yes. Economists and industry experts see these initiatives as steps in the right direction to address housing affordability concerns, particularly for Canadians facing mortgage renewals at higher interest rates. The government also plans to crack down on short-term rentals through platforms like Airbnb, with the aim of freeing up more housing for longer-term renters and buyers. Critics express concerns about using taxation to address the housing issue, question whether it will effectively improve Canada's housing supply. The increase in housing supply resulting from these measures is not expected to have an immediate impact on rent inflation, as most of the funding won't kick in until 2025. What a surprise. Canadian CMHC highlights the mortgage cliff, which estimates $2.2 million in mortgages up for renewal in 2024 and 2025, totaling $675 billion. Ottawa-based mortgage broker Chris Allard praises the removal of the stress test for some borrowers renewing their mortgages, as it allows them to shop around for better rates. Shout out to Chris Allard. The new Canadian mortgage charter codifies mortgage relief measures, including temporary extension of amortization periods and waiving fees for homeowners at risk. Lenders are required to inform homeowners of their renewal options well in advance of their mortgage renewal, providing more transparency. The charter also prevents banks from charging interest on interest during periods of negative amortization. Housing advocates support the crackdown on short-term rentals, citing the removal of housing units from the market as a key factor in the affordability crisis. These measures aim to address Canada's housing affordability challenges, though some critics remain skeptical about their effectiveness.
Okay, that's a hell of a summry.
That was good, though.
That was a way longer summary than I was expecting. I thought we were talking like 5 bullet points. That
was good.
So you read the Financial Post article, basically.
Summarized.
Summarized.
It removed all of their ums and ahs.
It's been the talk for the last couple days, last week, I suppose, and it seems like a whole lot of the same. From what I've heard, and from what I've read, I mean that was a big thing that came out this year, as we mentioned. We talked about it maybe a month or so ago about the transfer. I think that the non-stress test transfers, I think, is like the biggest thing that has come out of this, as far as just making it more public knowledge. And everything else is, like you said, building all those homes and so on. We'll see. Hey, we'll see what happens. But I think those sorts of things are good. It's good to have something to protect mostly homeowners. But I think the whole goal of this is to, make things more affordable. That's at least should be the goal of all these different exercises.
Exercise. I like the pause, bringing in the word exercises. The Airbnb thing I find pretty interesting, because it creates a whole new slew of challenges, if you may, for the other side, right? For the investors that bought specifically Airbnb to maximize profits, and they may not be able to sustain by turning their property into a long-term rental property. They may have to sell, and they may end up selling it less than what they paid for before it became an Airbnb. Who knows?
I don't see it as, there's two sides to it. I use Airbnb when I travel, go somewhere. Absolutely. At the same token, Airbnb, like the initial kind of inception was that it was going to be somebody renting out their basement apartment, or when they're away, rent out their place, not buying supply purpose for the sole purpose of Airbnb. And I know of, I remember, I think Paul, you and I stayed in one in Toronto at a condo, and it was just I would say 25% of the building must have been Airbnb units, and it was just a shit show. And so I can only imagine how infuriating that would be, buying a unit in a building, especially in a place like Toronto where it's all condos and, you know, half the units are just like it's being run like a hotel, but you're trying to go about your everyday life, or even just a house next to yours being permanently like Airbnb'd and you've got your family there and, you know, you've got a constant turnover. So I can kind of see both sides to it. I'm definitely somebody who uses it, but then at the same time, I can understand the challenges with it, what the intent was or lack of intent. So yeah, I think there's a number of cities that have banned it completely. I think New York City even completely banned Airbnb recently as well. So I could certainly see the Vancouvers and Torontos of the world banning shortly as an outright, which goes into when people like, I know, Paul, you probably get it as well. People reach out as investors of saying like, well, why won't the bank take this Airbnb income? Like, well, because like those bylaws or rules can be changed at any given time that completely outright ban it. Well, so they're not going to use that rental income. They're only going to use it as if it's, you know, rented out long term.
Or people will just straight up tell us, I'm buying this as an Airbnb. It's like, well, no, you can't.
Yeah, banks won't finance them. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that'll be interesting to kind of watch. Highlighting just the, you know, it's good that in the overarching budgetary like announcement was focused on housing, which I think is kind of, I think it's good that it's front and center because maybe these different departments within the government will actually speak to one another of, you know, funding needed for housing and us having lack of supply. It's taken a very long time for that to be acknowledged on a broader scale. So hopefully they start to, you know, between immigration and housing and budget, that things actually people talk and come together. But if it's not, like you said, if some of that's not kicking in until 2025, I mean, that's just
and what
the issue is just going to be exacerbated because, you know, we'll look at how many, like the immigration numbers every year. So we're talking 2 years out or a year out, year and a half. So an extra million people, 1.25 million, 1.5 million people in, like how much further behind are we as well?
Exactly. And what else happens between now and 2025? You know, it's like when you buy a new build 2 years ago and it closed now, what happened?
Well, 2025.
You were screwed.
It's also an election year, 2025. So that funding might not actually kick in.
How convenient.
Imagine that.
Convenient for everyone. Except for the Canadian citizen and the homeowner or the tenant.
Well, one highlight too that I thought was actually beneficial, that it's a small change, but requiring banks to reach out to homeowners 4 to 6 months before their mortgage renews. Like I talk to people even sometimes 60, 90 days before the renewal and they haven't heard from their bank at all, which is absurd. Like they have no idea, like, oh, I haven't gotten anything. It's like, well, it's a good thing we know that your mortgage is renewing because otherwise you would just be rolled into an open term. Like people still don't know. People aren't being notified, or maybe they're sending it to a different address, or they don't check their mail. Who knows? It could be a lot of things, or they're getting e statements instead of, you know, paper statements. But yeah, having the banks have to reach out 4 to 6 months, I think is beneficial for everyone. It just is like a reminder. You have half a year to figure this out, and it also promotes choice. I think it gives people that time to actually assess their options and not just delve into the first thing they see or offered. So I think that was a positive takeaway. And
it all sounds great. Bottom line, it all sounds great. Again, we'll see how great it is soon enough. We'll be talking about it on the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. What's next?
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe because we'd really like that.